All right, guys. So thank you again for all spending some time today to get to know a little bit more about Deschutes Brewery, and I'm very glad to hear that it sounds like a lot of you guys have heard of us before and are excited that we are in North Carolina because it's been a long time coming for us to get there. So we are very, very excited to get you guys a little bit more of the insider info so you can help us spread the good word about our damn tasty beer all across the state of North Carolina. And as we mentioned just a few seconds ago, we are kicking everything off this weekend because next weekend, we are going to start dropping packaged product into the state starting on Monday, the 21st. So we have been selling draft all summer, started that back in June, and we're really glad to have you guys on board to start helping us get some more samples in people's hands in grocery and throughout the entire state now that we are available in bottles as well. So before we get a little bit further in, just a nice way to say hi and let you know who you're talking to right now. So my name is Caroline McDonald, and I am our East Coast Field Marketing Manager. So if you guys ever have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. My email is listed right on there. If you're ever getting any questions out in the stores, people seem to be asking the same question over and over that you don't know the answer to, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always here to help. And we have one of our core values of do your best and next time do it better. So if there is something that you think would be helpful for you when you guys are out there doing samplings or anything like that, I do hope that you will be more than willing to share that with us. And, it's super important to us to have you guys here today. And it's why, we're taking the time out to sit down and walk you guys through a little bit of a presentation because education is really important. You are all going out there and talking about a lot of different beers, but it's important to us that you guys feel confident about what you are doing so that you don't go out and sound like this. All right, guys, sounds like the video is probably not working. So if anybody has seen TED, that is a scene where they basically go through and throw out a bunch of nonsense names for beer that end in the word ski, starting with brewski. And while it's hilarious, they basically are a bunch of idiots saying nonsense. And we don't want you to feel like that when you are out there representing Deschutes. So really important that when you are out doing our samplings that you are speaking consistently. Black Beauty Porter, and that Fresh Squeezed IPA is our #1 selling beer, not our #2 selling beer. And then it's also important to go through all of this so that you understand more about who we are, so that you can speak with that passion. Every single one of us, there's about 550 employees now, and every single one of us comes into work every day completely excited and happy to be there. And this presentation will hopefully give you guys a little bit of insight and excitement about our company as well, and why we are also happy. And we want you guys to feel confident when you're going out and talking about our products. There's nothing worse than not having an answer or not knowing what you're representing. So hopefully by the end of this, you will be able to speak to all of the details about the beers that you're going to start your samplings with and know a little bit about our company so you can help share what makes Deschutes who we are. So in order to prepare you guys for all of that, we will talk a little bit about our history and our culture. And then, of course, we're going to go through the 4 main brands that you guys will be sampling to start things off. And then, of course, how we want you to sample those beers. So just some basic practices about how to do that, including the tasting order. And then, of course, we will talk about some of the fun things that we're doing and some of the news that's going on in the region. Part of why we are able to expand in North Carolina now is because we have these plans to open a new brewery in Roanoke. So Virginia and North Carolina and the Mid-Atlantic are super, super important to us. We've got a lot going on in the area that we want to make sure you guys know about and can answer questions about. So just some quick facts about who we are, and I hope that you'll be able to pull this up after our presentation too, and maybe start to memorize some of these little tidbits just so you have some good talking points as you're going out into the market. So we have been around for almost 30 years now. We just celebrated our 29th birthday on June 27th in 1988, and we actually were originally opened as a British-style brew pub. So our founder, Gary Fish, and his family, he and his wife wanted to open a restaurant and had fallen in love with these British style pubs when they were traveling in England, and brought that over to America, including actually an original pub yeast strain. So you'll notice that many of our original beers are actually British styles. And what had them fall in love with the idea of a pub is that it was really a gathering place for the community. You know, nothing brings people together better than good food and good beer. And so back in the 80s, the only way to get good beer was to make it yourself. So that is what they did. And they specifically opened this brew pub in Bend, Oregon, which at that point in time was about 12,000 people. It used to be a pretty bustling timber town, and that industry had kind of gone away, but it's this beautiful little spot in Central Oregon, right along the Deschutes River, which is where the name of our brewery comes from. So it is actually a French word that means of the falls. And the Deschutes River, you know, changes elevation an awful lot. And so it's this beautiful waterway that has many, many waterfalls. And so when the French discovered it, they named it Deschutes. And, you know, we were family owned from the beginning, and we are now family and employee owned. So we are 100% independent. And a couple of years ago, the Fish family actually sold a portion of the company to all of us. So we are no longer just employees, we are actually co-owners with the Fishes. So that's another really important thing to us, and helps found the way that we all think about and take pride in our jobs every single day. So we started back there in Bend, Oregon, but obviously to get all the way out to North Carolina, we've had to do a little bit of expanding. That original pub, not a huge production facility. We would not be able to be selling beer all the way on the other side of the country if that's all we still had. So in the early 90s, we actually expanded beyond the pub there in Bend, and just about a mile away opened our first production facility. And then in the 2000s, we opened a pub about 3.5 hours north. You can see on the map there where Portland is located in reference to Bend. And so we've had the Portland pub as well, with also a brewing system in there. So doing a lot of research and development in those two smaller systems, and then scaling everything up into the production brewery to sell it all over the country. And of course, as I mentioned, we're going to be opening up shop here in Roanoke, Virginia. So most imminent would be actually in just 2 weeks from today. We have a grand opening of a tasting room in downtown Roanoke. We'll talk more about that further in. And then we are planning to start shipping beer out of our production facility that is about 3.5 miles from downtown Roanoke in 2021. So going from one location to almost 5 now. By 2021, we'll be in 5 separate locations on both sides of the country. Some more quick numbers and some quick facts about who we are, and just good things to get a conversation going with a customer. So we are actually the second largest consumer of whole cone hops. So that's an interesting thing that you can bring up when you're talking to a big IPA lover, maybe talking about our fresh squeezed. And, you know, a lot of breweries, and even we do too, but use pelletized hops. But the vast majority of the hops we use are actually whole cone. And we, because of that, are the second largest consumer, second only to Sierra Nevada. So really, really awesome that we are able to access super fresh whole cone hops like that. And if you look over at that mugshot of our brewing team on the right, those ladies and gentlemen together have a combined over 200 years of brewing experience. So we have an amazingly talented brewing team across our 3 current brewing locations that are able to bring an immense amount of expertise, not just in brewing, but also as it relates to quality. So we wouldn't be here almost 30 years later if we didn't make a quality, consistent product. And a huge testament goes to our brewing team and our quality assurance team, not pictured there, for making sure that that happens. You know, we are not afraid to throw a beer out if it doesn't meet our standards. And thankfully, because of all of these people's talents, we very rarely have to do that. And, you know, to get these tasty beers out to everybody, we're doing a lot of research and developing new beers along the way. And those two pubs do allow us to do that because they are smaller systems. And we've been very, very excited this year, actually, to get a brand new pilot system up and running in the production brewery as well. And so in the past, we've been able to do about 20 to 25 experimental brews a year between those two pubs. And we can now do about 20 in 1 week. So our pilot system is a huge step up for us in being able to get super creative and really test out a lot of stuff. It even allows us to do split batches. So we can brew one wort and then add 2 different types of hops to it and ferment them in different ways with different yeasts and see what happens. So really allowing our team to hone in on specific flavors and characters in a particular beer or style to bring the absolute next best thing to the shelf. And so we're doing a lot with our beer and obviously selling a lot of it, which we'll talk about on another slide. But for us, it's not just about making the beer. And this is really one of the things that sets us apart, aside from our co-ownership and just the work-life balance culture that we have, but also that giving has been a huge part of our identity from day one. So the way that manifests now is that we have a $1 per barrel program that goes through our community involvement team to funnel directly back into nonprofits in the places where we sell beer. So the main places we focus that are in Roanoke, Portland, and in Bend, but we do spend that across our entire footprint. And one great thing to point out for you guys when you are out doing these samplings is that we actually rolled out a brand new model for our launch in North Carolina. Never before have we partnered with nonprofits from day one in a state, and we did that for the first time ever in North Carolina. So when we came in back in June, all of our launch events tied back into a nonprofit where we were actively raising money for them at the event, as well as sending part of our team and our distributors' teams out during the day to do some volunteering with them. So we partnered with conservation groups, food banks, Evelyn Charities in the Asheville area who gives back in pretty much every way to the community. We worked with an animal organization down in Fayetteville, and working with waterways and forests and everything all across the state. And so some of those dollars that were, all of those dollars that were raised at those events, we and our distributors are matching the exact same amount and giving back into the community across the entire state. And those are coming from the $1 per barrel program. So even though we may not have a tasting room or a brewery in North Carolina, we're still committing some of our dollars to go right back into our new community that we've just joined. And for a little bit of perspective about exactly how much this is, because in addition to the $1 per barrel, we do have our street pub program, which we'll learn more about further into the presentation. But between street pubs giving and the $1 per barrel, we donated over $800,000 to charity in 2016, and we are on track to well exceed that this year. So really, really awesome that, you know, we can have a lot of fun in our jobs and be in a really cool industry, but also because of our success, be able to give back in really important ways to the environment, the community, families and children, and the arts. And so moving a little bit back more into our history here and the beers that brewing team you see is still brewing to this day, and maybe not. The very first beers that we brewed were our Black Butte Porter, and for many, many years, that was our #1 selling beer. And a porter was a weird thing to brew in the 80s, to be quite honest, when everything was yellow and fizzy. But Gary Fish said that he would rather have a big piece of a small pie than a tiny, tiny piece of a really large pie. And Black Butte Porter is really what drove our success in those early years and got us to where we are today. And then the other two beers that we first started out with are our Bachelor Bitter. So another English style, you know, a British bitter. And that is not something that we package today, but it is always going to be on tap in any of our pubs or tasting rooms that you see. So that is a local's favorite, and anytime it went off tap, they pretty much threw a fit. So you'll always be able to get that on draft when you come and see us in one of our locations. And then the third beer is our Cascade Golden Ale. So again, another traditional British style that we unfortunately no longer package, but was around for many years when we first started. So a little bit of an actual physical representation of where we are and what we're doing. The first slide we're looking at here is actually our production facility. So we are super fortunate to brew in an incredibly beautiful place. And even as you're looking at this somewhat industrial scene with our warehouses and all of this stainless steel, you can look out behind it and see the Deschutes River just slowly flowing by. And then even further out, Pilot Butte, which is this little mountain, almost more like a hill that overlooks town. And as your eyes kind of search even further out, you can start to see the Cascade Mountains. And we have this awesome industrial size facility centered in one of the most beautiful places on earth, if you ask anyone from our company. And so out of this facility, we are producing all of the beer that you're going to find in a bottle. And so this services our entire footprint, including the East Coast right now. And a couple years down the road, once we get brewing up here in Roanoke, all the beer that you guys are currently finding in North Carolina will start coming from there. So it'll be even fresher. But what you're looking at here is actually 2 brew houses. So if you can see my mouse here hovering over on the far left side, that is what was the original brew house when we first opened the production facility in the early 90s. And that is the JV brew house. And it's actually gravity fed, so kind of a fun fact. And that's the one where we typically are brewing our darker beers. So Obsidian Stout, sometimes some Black Beet Porter, any of our reserve beers like Abyss. And then kind of behind that, over in this area, that's where you're looking at our, over here in this area, that's where you're looking at our much larger Hoopman brew house. And so that's really the powerhouse. And it's driving a lot of production for us, especially on fresh squeezed, as that is our #1 selling beer. And there's another super exciting thing going on for us is all these tanks over here on the right side. We're not even using those yet. So we have a lot of room to grow before we even need all of the space that we're about to create here in Roanoke. So our growth and our expansion plans are very intentional, so we don't back ourselves into a corner before we can even start brewing out here on the East Coast. So no worries for anybody in North Carolina about being able to get enough beer. And back to the OG, our original location. So this is actually another place where we started small and expanded. So if you look on the left-hand side, that is the original public house, the Deschutes Brewery Public House. And that's where everything started way back in 1988 and where we still do a lot of small batches and experimental brews today. And then in the 2000s, we expanded this entire right side. We added a private event space upstairs and added a ton of seating and basically more than doubled the size of the restaurant. Because as Deschutes has grown, so has Bend, Oregon. It's become a very, very popular tourist destination. It is a beautiful place and people seem to have caught on. So the public house became a very popular spot and we expanded our seating there to accommodate more and more fans. And then of course in Portland, our pub there is located in the Pearl District, which is a really great brewing neighborhood. And if you peek through that front door there, you'll see one of my favorite things about it is actually all of the wood sculptures that surround part of the seating area. You can see one of them right here. They are hand carved by a local artisan out in Oregon and just represent the beauty and the scenery that is that state. You know, showing animals and forests and rivers and everything that really defines the experience out there and bringing a piece of that into the Portland pub. So even though it's in a city, you know, totally different from Bend, you're still getting a sense for the great outdoors and the nature and a little bit of the simplicity that is Bend, Oregon, where we started out. And as we are talking about what it is that we do and really what defines us as we are brewing in all of those locations and working and selling far, far away from home, we're still all united under one simple mission to deliver the finest beers in the world and cultivate extraordinary experiences. So we've got all of those amazing brewers back west, and eventually we'll have even more talented folks out here. But really what we're all doing is trying to deliver the finest product and a beer in hand and an amazing experience with family and friends wherever you are. And the way that we believe that we can best deliver that is with our core values of honoring our customers, delivering quality, working together. Working as a team is huge for us. And then, of course, I already mentioned do our best and next time do it better. We are adamant about getting feedback. And then, of course, too, you know, the other side of it, right? To build a healthier society. It's not just about a profit or just about beer. It is about doing something to give back and maintain and better the community that you're a part of. And that includes the entire beer world. So we love to join up with other breweries and beer nerds and beer bloggers, anybody who wants to talk about beer. We are down to join them and celebrate it. And then, of course, own it. You know, we are out there to own our experiences, whether it's positive, negative, and do it better. You know, have fun every single second with what you're doing and look ahead for the next thing and how to do more and really elevate every experience and every single beer that reaches one of our customers. And part of what makes this easy is our company culture. So the state of Oregon and Bend, Oregon really seeps out into every single one of us, no matter where we are working in the company. And we seem to attract like-minded individuals. I'm not even from Oregon, I'm from Wisconsin, but that love of the outdoors. And the same thing that we found, you know, out in our new home in Roanoke, but also our newest home in North Carolina. You know, people that love the beach or love the mountains. You know, I was out at the U.S. Whitewater Center and just finding amazing people out there who just want to be active and appreciate what all of life has to offer and all that nature has to offer, and then celebrate it at the end of the day with a good beer with your friends. And that's really the same thing that you find in Bend, Oregon. You know, all of these people going out, and whether they're floating down the Deschutes River or fly fishing or hiking, mountain biking is huge out there. Whitewater rafting, paddle boarding, surfing even. There is surfing on the Deschutes River, believe it or not. So any outdoor activity is available in this giant wonderland that is Central Oregon. And I think it's part of what keeps our company threaded together no matter where we are, is that there are people like that everywhere. And, you know, there's more in certain places, and that's part of why we've been super excited to get into North Carolina and meet more like-minded people that we can share a beer with, and that appreciate, you know, everything that is offered in this natural wonderland. And there's another video that we're not going to be able to watch because I guarantee the sound won't work on this, so I do apologize for that. But I hope you guys will check it out. So it is actually about one of the first beers that we're going to talk about, our Pacific Wonderland Lager. And when we get to that, I will let you know where you can find the video. But some other elements of our culture that, you know, really define us are what we go out and take on the road, trying to bring this experience of Central Oregon out to the people and help them get to know us. So you may have seen on the highway sometime, maybe this giant wooden barrel driving by. And this is Woody T. Barrel, Woody the Barrel, and his partner in crime, Sue, the truck. And we have a crew of 2 awesome dudes who literally drive Woody all over the country all year and bring the beer to the people. And so they are going out to new markets that we may be launching in, or beer festivals, or GABF, going all over the place and really just cultivating those extraordinary experiences, you know, bringing unique beers with them, or maybe some of our beer brunch cocktails, and showing people all the fun that we are always ready to have. And then, of course, Street Pub. So Street Pub is that other side of our community giving, but also all about bringing our pub experience to the people. So each year we select a number of cities and do a street pub tour basically across the country. So this year we did 5 cities, starting in Cincinnati, and then came to Roanoke, and then did Milwaukee actually just a few weeks ago. And then we'll round out the year in Sacramento, California, and Portland, Oregon. And basically we set up a giant bar in the middle of the street for one day. And 75% of those proceeds go directly back to local nonprofits in that community. So if you look at that center photo there, you catch a glimpse of the bar. It is in total 400 feet of bar. So it is a 360-degree bar. There's over 50 beers that are on tap. We do specialty reserve tastings. Our head chef comes out, our executive chef, and does culinary demos with local chefs. It's staffed entirely by volunteers from the community. We have a giant VIP area, and of course, as you can see on there, a beer shotski, because as you all know, beer is best enjoyed with friends. So doing all sorts of fun things all throughout the day with live music on 2 stages. We've got our buddies from Hydro Flask and Keen Footwear and Hum Kombucha who come out and add some more games and fun. And, you know, again, every pint that you're drinking, those dollars are going back to the nonprofits in that community. So the idea that we can give back very, very actively, all by coming together to share a pint. And just a little bit of perspective about what the program has accomplished. In 2 years, we were in 14 cities. We consumed over 2,000 kegs of beer, engaged with over 200,000 fans, and just from Street Pub alone, donated about $840,000 to local charities. And that's only growing. So this year with 5 cities, we will only increase that number, and we'll get a little bit more specifically into Roanoke Street Pub because we accomplished an awful lot this July. So you may run into some customers who were up here or heard about it and just wanted to make sure that you had a little bit of fuel to engage in those conversations. So this was back on Saturday, July 15th. It was in the same location that we held it in 2016. It's right in Elmwood Park, which is in downtown Roanoke. And again, just reiterating everything that was going on there and some of the records that we set because we actually broke our own records from last year. So Roanoke set a keg and an attendance record this year. We consumed in just 8 hours 269 kegs of beer and had over 25,000 people attend. So for a frame of reference, Roanoke only has 100,000 people. So 1/4 of the town came out to this festival, which is pretty amazing. It really shows how much people wanted to come out and engage with Deschutes, but also how much they came out to support themselves, right? With all those proceeds, or 75% of those proceeds going back to the 4 nonprofits you see listed on this slide. And that very important number, the money that we raised, just shy of $68,000. So $67,500 went directly back to those 4 charities to support the work that they are already doing in the community. So you'll see 2 on there that have to do with Conservancy, the Blue Ridge Land Conservancy and the Pathfinders for Greenways. And then the Bradley Free Clinic, obviously offering free medical services to those in need. And then Roanoke Outside is another conservation organization that also helps support the protection of parks and growth of parks and recreation in the area. So thinking about where we sell and where that's all happening outside of Bend, Oregon, where we started many, many years ago, you can see right here on this map, we're in an awful lot of places. So we do sell now in 29 states, thanks to all of you fine people down in North Carolina. We're also in Washington, D.C., and we do sell a little bit internationally. So you'll see those 2 provinces up in Canada, and then we do sell a little bit of beer in Southeast Asia, as well as Australia. So most of our beer obviously being sold here, but a little bit of it will make its way across the Atlantic. And don't forget, we do actually sell in Alaska and Hawaii as well. And over the years, you know, we've done a lot of growth to get there, right? Selling in all of those places. So I love this little number here at the very beginning, 714 barrels in 1988. Not a lot, not even 1,000. And, you know, Gary Fish, our founder, loves to say that in that first year, they probably dumped more beer than they actually sold. So thankfully, we've gotten a little bit better since then. And last year, we brewed just over $374,000. So that makes us the 8th largest craft brewery in the United States as of 2016. And that also means, with the dollar per barrel program, that we will give $374,313 back to the community just from that program alone this year. So now diving into the beers that you guys are going to be sampling. So we're going to talk about 4 specifically because these are the 4 main beers that you guys are going to find in your market. The first of all being our Pacific Wonderland Lager, and named for exactly what you're seeing here, the Pacific Wonderland that we're from. And the idea behind this beer is that it is the perfect one to enjoy all of that beautiful nature right outside of your door, however you want to, whether it's the mountains or the beach or a lake or just a walk through the woods, you know. This is the perfect anytime beer. And there is no better testimony than the video that we made to release this beer. So if you guys head over to YouTube and just search for Pacific Wonderland Lager, Deschutes Brewery, it should pop right up. And I hope you guys will all watch it after this call, since the video is not going to work for us right now.
And guys, that's actually already been uploaded to the Beer Explorer portal. So as long as you log on there to review the information, you'll be able to see it there.
Perfect. That's awesome. Cool. So what makes this beer the perfect one for all of your outdoor activities or even just mowing the lawn? It is actually a dry hop lager. And one of the things that's exciting for us is that this is actually the first year-round lager that we've ever had. And it's a little bit different, you know, than you might find with any other lighter lager because of the dry hopping. So it is still light-bodied, but it has that very nice citrusy twist at the end. So the Tettnang Mandarina hop that is actually not, we do dry hop it with that as well, but it's also thrown in earlier in the boil. And so that gives it a really nice mandarin orange flavor. And this is actually our only lager currently. So if somebody's looking, if they come up to your table for the sampling and they say, well, I want to try a lager, this is definitely the one to go with. And again, it's available year round. And another nice aspect about it, making it light, easy to drink, only 5.5%, right? The IBUs are a little bit lower. So even though it's going to have a nice hop aroma, it's also not going to have any of that hop bitterness to finish it out, just 40 IBUs. So the key words to remember here are that it is a lighter lager and that it has a nice citrus flavor to it. Not going to be a super overpowering beer. So this is really the best one to start people off with if they're not super sure about craft beer as well. And then the next beer you may remember from earlier, one of our very first beers, our Black Butte Porter. So we like to name our beers for the beautiful world that we're a part of and places that we are tied to. And Black Butte is an iconic landmark in Central Oregon. It's visible all over Central Oregon, Bend included, and just this beautiful mountain that has trees all the way to the top, though. It's not alpine. So you can go up there to the top, as you see in the bottom right, and look out across a lot of the Cascades and catch view of the Three Sisters, if you guys are familiar with those, and all the way down to Mount Bachelor even, which is the big ski resort about 45 minutes outside of Bend that everybody loves to play on in the winter. And so when we were brewing this beer at the very early days, Black Butte seemed like a great name for it, especially because the color of the mountain is actually really dark, and so is a porter. So if you are familiar with a porter, this definitely is the quintessential example. So it's got rich chocolate coffee flavors, but it's actually modeled off of an English style porter. So it's going to have a little bit more of a creamy body, even though it has that drier roasted finish on it. It really drinks super easy. It's actually very light for a porter. People may be afraid to drink it in warmer weather, but it still sells really well and drinks really well in the summer. So I actually even think that it has almost like a milk chocolatiness to the body. So if somebody's looking for something a little bit sweeter, or they say they're actually not a beer drinker, see if they'll give this one a try. I've found very frequently that people who say they don't like beer still love Black Butte Porter. And again, available year round, so people can always find it. And the other thing too that people often think when they're looking at a dark beer is that the ABVs are super high, like, oh, I don't want to drink something super heavy. It's going to have tons of alcohol. This is an even lower ABV than Pacific Wonderland, just 5.2%. And of course, given the flavor description we just talked about, the IBUs are obviously even lower, excuse me, just sitting at 30. And the next beer that we're going to talk about is actually a seasonal. So as we rotate through seasonals with any sort of ongoing sampling program, we always come back through to you guys and we'll update you on the next seasonal. But the one that you guys are going to start out with is actually our Hop Zeit Autumn IPA. And this is going to be perfect out here. I'm super, super excited to have this down in North Carolina because it's still warm this time of year down there, hot even. And this is really going to be very, very different than a lot of the other fall beers that you see because, excuse me, there it is. So this is super, super different because what you're finding in it is that it is inspired by a Marzen beer, but it is not going to have that super, super rich malt body, and it's not going to be overly sweet. So this was really our West Coast response to those spiced malty autumn ales and lagers. So rather than having a really rich body on it, it does have Munich, Vienna, and Pilsner malt in it. So it's going to have a smooth, nice, slightly sweeter, definitely a stronger malt backbone. But the German hops that we add are actually what afford the herbal, fruit, and spice notes to it. So rather than adding spices to the beer, we let the hops do the work here. This is available from the end of August until about October or whenever it runs out. And it is a little bit higher in alcohol. It's sitting at 7%. And you still are going to get a little bit more bitterness than, say, the Pacific Wonderland Lager because it is sitting at 60 IBUs. And then finally, our fresh squeezed IPA. And I do apologize because I just realized that the second slide for this is not in here, unfortunately. But fresh squeezed IPA is actually our #1 selling beer. So we developed this a number of years ago because we had an idea that perhaps these citrusy IPAs might be something that people are fond of. So back then we brought this one out, and it very quickly overtook Black Butte Porter as our #1 selling beer. And even though we knew it would be successful, we were even surprised. So fresh squeezed IPA is now our #1 selling beer across our entire footprint. So if anybody wants to try an IPA, this is the one to go with. And, it is a citrus IPA, but there is no actual fruit added to the beer. So we're going to add an awful lot of Citra hops to this beer as well as Mosaic. And that's really what's bringing in a lot of the citrusy flavor. Most people get grapefruit. I've heard some people pick up on orange or maybe even a little bit of lemon. But typically, even before you take a sip, as soon as you sniff this beer, you just get an overwhelming, juicy grapefruit. You might even start to feel your mouth watering. I always tell people that this is the beer that begs you to drink it. And it's really, really hard to have just one because you're getting so much hop flavor without a huge, huge bitter bomb. So oftentimes someone who doesn't even like IPAs will actually love fresh squeezed because it's not super bitter. The IBUs are sitting at 60, but that's actually much lower than a lot of IPAs in general. And because there are so many of these juicy, citrusy flavors, it actually helps mitigate some of that bitterness. So it's also sitting at 6.4% as well. So someone who's worried an IPA, similar to the Black Butte Porter, they may say, oh, no, IPAs are super high in alcohol. I don't want that. It's quite a bit lower than a lot of the IPAs that you would find, again, sitting at 6.4%. So when we are sampling these beers, there is a specific order to go in, obviously. And that has to do with the flavor characteristics that are coming out here. So the tasting order that we're going to prefer is obviously Pacific Wonderland Lager first. It is the one that has the lightest flavor profile, and we will miss out perhaps on some of those nice lighter citrus flavors coming out of it if you started with, say, fresh squeezed first that has so much overwhelming citrus. So want to make sure that if somebody is doing multiple tastings that you start them with the Pacific Wonderland Lager. And then actually it does make the most sense to go to our Black Butte Porter next because it is really light for a porter. So the two, because we have the Hopsite Autumn IPA as a seasonal right now, it really makes sense to put that after Black Butte Porter because you're going to get so much spice and herbal flavors coming out of those German hops. So wanting to make sure that we allow the Black Butte Porter with that creamier body to really stand for itself before we dive into the Hopsite Autumn IPA. And then, of course, because fresh squeezed is just overwhelmingly citrus and juicy and I almost think of it as like this indulgent fruit flavor. Want to make sure that one is the last one that you lead with. And then also, when you guys are out there and leading these samplings, take the words right out of this presentation. All of those keywords that were highlighted in red, those are the most important things to remember. So if you are going back and reading through this, just pull those pieces out and really focus on memorizing those. It's really more about the flavor descriptors that people need to know than the ABV and IBU. Those are obviously important, and don't make them up. If you don't know it, don't say it. It's always okay to say, I don't know. We'd much rather, going back to the beginning of this, be consistent, right? Sharing the correct information. So just focus on memorizing the flavor of the beers. And that's typically the most important thing to a customer when you're guiding them towards a beer to try. And also going along with that, just a couple of things that frequently come up when somebody's coming up for a sampling and which beer might be the best fit for that. So Pacific Wonderland, as I already mentioned, is really the best one to go with if somebody's new to craft, they're not quite sure. And somebody who's unsure about IPAs, or they say they like malty beers, maybe have them give the Hopsite Autumn IPA a try. In particular, as we're moving towards fall and somebody's, oh, I love Oktoberfest or I love pumpkin beer, say, oh, why don't you give this a try? It's a little bit different take on a fall beer, and give someone that opportunity to give it a whirl. And then, of course, if somebody's an IPA lover, you want to drive them right towards fresh squeezed. And then, again, already talked about it, but somebody who doesn't necessarily like beer, or they're looking for something a little bit sweeter, the Black Butte Porter is definitely the way to go there, with those rich coffee, chocolatey flavors, and its nice creamy body. And there are, I believe, a few Krogers throughout the state. So we're not going to go through this because there are so few, and I'm not sure that anyone will even end up sampling in them. But wanted to include this in the presentation since it will be uploaded. If by chance you do end up sampling in a Kroger, these are straight from them. This is nothing that we, Deschutes Brewery, put together. But these are all pretty standard things that I would imagine are expected of you guys anyway. Working the whole time, being in, appropriate attire, closed-toed shoes, be knowledgeable, be engaging, all the basics, carding people, all that kind of stuff. But of course, if you have any specific questions about the Kroger standards and you are going to be sampling there, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. And the exciting stuff, right? So I promised we'd get to it, all of the news and the wonderful things we have going on here in the Mid-Atlantic. Our tasting room, we are super, super pumped. It is about to open. We're just 2 weeks away, very hard at work at making this happen. So what you see there is a rendering of the outside of the space. And this is located right in the center of downtown Roanoke. It's an awesome location, right across actually from the Hampton Inn and Suites. And it is on the corner of Market Street and Church. And Market Street actually is on Saturdays completely shut down. It's all foot traffic, and there's a giant farmers market out there every single Saturday of the year. So we will be having our grand opening of the space on Monday, August 28th. It's open to the public. So please encourage anyone to come up and visit us here in Roanoke as you're starting out with those first samplings next week. And the hours, it's going to be open every day of the week, 1 to 9 p.m. And inside, it is technically a brewery as well, but a very small system. So we installed, I believe it's a 10-gallon brewing system that's going to be used much more for educational purposes and community engagement. So our team has been working a lot directly with the Virginia Tech Fermentation Science Program. So we may end up with some of their students coming in to brew. We're also working with them, for their student exchange program with Wine Stefaner, getting some folks trading back and forth between that program and the Virginia Tech program, and utilizing our brewing system as well. So we'll be doing a lot of really unique, cool, small community-based brewing there. And another important thing to point out to folks is that it is not a brew pub in the traditional sense. So we are brewing there, but there is no kitchen on site. We're not going to leave people with nothing to eat and 24 taps, as you may see listed here. We're going to have a lot of ready-to-eat snacks like meat and cheese plates and that kind of thing. Or people are more than welcome to grab takeout from one of the many awesome restaurants just down the street from us, or right next door even in Roanoke, and bring that on inside and enjoy it while they have a flight or a couple of beers with us. There is also a retail space. So we are, in addition to doing growler fills, also selling beer to go. So 6-packs will be available in addition to a plethora of merchandise. So t-shirts, hats, they could buy growlers right there, all sorts of stuff. And if anybody is asking about hiring, that actually is already completed for the tasting room, but we will have a brewery that we need to hire for in the future. So anyone looking for that, you can always direct them to the website, deschutesbrewery.com/jobs. And if anyone has additional questions, anything that you can't answer in general, whether it's about the tasting room or the brewery, anything like that, We have an amazing customer service department, and by department, I mean one man. His name is Jordan, and he is super helpful, super happy, always excited.
Caroline, I think we lost you.
Hey guys, this is Brandon, the market manager for Deschutes for North Carolina. Yeah, I'll give her a shout and let her know. So we'll be back on shortly.
Perfect. Thanks, Brandon. Hey guys, while we're waiting for Caroline to get back on right now, has anybody had any Deschutes beers? Obviously, they rolled out in the market, not in package, but will be this week. Has anybody had anything so far from the lineup that we're going to be sampling that they've had so far and that they're excited and ready to talk about, or is this pretty new to everybody? Stephanie said Flying Saucer had some stuff on tap recently. That's awesome. Anthony, I see you mentioned the American Wheat, Black Butte, and Fresh Squeeze. Awesome. Caroline, I saw you might have popped back on. Amanda, I have had the Pacific Wonderland. It really is that good. All right, Caroline, it looks like we got you back on. Let's see.
Hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. I just all of a sudden got kicked off.
Sorry about that. Not sure what's going on.
No worries. All right, so can you guys see, let's see, where do we leave off? What was the last thing you guys heard?
We were just finishing up with the Roanoke. Yep, so we just finished up there.
Okay, cool. Perfect. So we already touched on the tasting room. These are just a couple points to kind of reiterate it. And then, of course, the hiring is really just coming along down the line as we get closer to the production facility, which is the other thing that everybody's really super excited to hear about. So we officially announced that we were coming to Roanoke March 22nd of last year. And we do have a somewhat lengthy timeline. So people frequently ask about that. But the site that we picked about 3.5 miles northeast of downtown Roanoke is a green field that doesn't even have a road to it yet. So it is a beautiful piece of property. It overlooks Tinker Creek and has a view of downtown. And it's a ton of, I believe it's about 50 acres. So we have a huge, huge footprint to fill out. And it's going to be great. But because it's so large and there's also no access to it yet, it is taking us a little bit of time. So right now, the architects and engineers are on board, and we are now working with an architect to draw up our master site plan, right? Sounds so official, but just figuring out how do we plan out this giant space so that as we continue to phase out our build over a number of years, we don't back ourselves into a corner with any of it. So there's a lot of things we want to do, and we'll initially be brewing about 150,000 barrels with plans to expand that capacity over time. So it's really, really important that our initial build out doesn't limit future build outs. So that's part of what you can tell people if they are questioning our rather lengthy timeline. You know, we want to do it right the first time around. So we will break ground in 2019, and then we plan to be brewing by 2020, and then giving ourselves about a year to do flavor matching and make sure that all the beer brewed in Roanoke tastes just like the beer brewed in Bend. Wanting to, again, deliver quality to our customers and making sure that everything is consistent. So you guys can look forward to having super, super fresh beer right from Roanoke in just a couple of years. And then just a few FAQs that may come up with relative frequency compared to some other things. Is how much beer the brewery is going to make. Already mentioned that, about 150,000 barrels in the first year, and then that'll increase over a number of years. The brewery itself should bring about 100 jobs to Roanoke, which we're very excited about. And then the tasting room actually has already brought 11. So that's 111 jobs total if you want to get specific. And then people ask oftentimes, why are we even doing this? And, it has to do with freshness, but also efficiency. Bend is awfully far from the East Coast, and it seems like people out here like our beer, and we would like to sell it to them more and more. So to make that an efficient process and get them the freshest beer possible, it just made sense to build out a brewery here. And then, of course, the East Coast is a large place, so why did we pick Roanoke? And the short version here, you can read this, but it really just checked a lot of boxes for being the right fit. So we talked about Bend as this small place in Central Oregon, just surrounded by the great outdoors and being absolutely beautiful and really a community-driven place. And Roanoke reminded us of that, nestled right in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and a place that used to be a big bustling railroad town but is on the rise, just like Bend used to be a big timber town and had gotten kind of smaller, and now it's grown to almost 100,000 people as well. So there was a lot of kind of kindred spirits going on there, but also the community really rallied around us and created this amazing Deschutes to Roanoke campaign on social media, and just absolutely showed us that there was no other place to be, that they were welcoming us with open arms into their home because they knew just as much that it was, as we do, that it was the right place for us to be. And we have only continued to experience that in spades, and part of that is shown by all those records we set at Street Pub, that everyone is coming out to engage with Deschutes because we came out here to engage with them and support their community as well, just as we do everywhere. So anyone that may have additional questions about our decision to come to Roanoke can go to that website you see right there, deschutesbrewery.com/Roanoke. And there is even more detail on there, and we do update that website with pertinent details as we continue to make plans about our expansion. So there's another video on here, guys, about why this matters, but basically, why is all of this important? And I would imagine for all of you on the line right now, you have this job because you love beer just as much as we do. And at the end of the day, we're arming you with all of this knowledge and telling you all about us. But really, we're here because we all want to be able to help someone fall in love with a beer. And in this case, at a Deschutes sampling, it's going to be a Deschutes beer. But that's why it's important for us to be able to spend this time with you and put all of these tools and information at your fingertips, because we make damn tasty beer, and we hope that you will help all the people of North Carolina fall in love with it, as it sounds like the way many of you guys already have. So thank you guys for taking the time, and I know there are probably a lot of questions in the chat, and if anything else comes up right now, I'm happy to answer any of those with the time that we have left.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for anybody who has questions. I know we answered a couple of questions already in the chat function, kind of briefly. But guys, I want to go ahead and welcome you either to throw questions in the chat function right now for Caroline to answer, or go ahead and unmute yourself and answer those questions. I know I certainly have a couple. So maybe I'll kick us off with the first question I have. Which is obviously Hopsite is a super exciting autumn IPA. I think that's going to do really great in this market. Can you tell us, Caroline, if you were to put that up against perhaps another brand of beer, or obviously a Marzen style IPA is really unique. Where would you point folks? So if you had somebody that said they were interested in this style, where would you put people on that spectrum if you were to recommend that to folks?
So are you asking if they point out a specific style that they enjoy that would lead them to Hopsite?
Yeah, absolutely. Or even perhaps we could kind of connect that to another beverage if it wasn't specifically beer.
Oh, gotcha. So, I mean, honestly, Hopsite is incredibly unique. It was brewed and intended to be very different from anything else. But it's a natural segue from like a spiced autumn ale or more like a Marzen beer. It's almost like a fusion of those, but it's not going to have the, sometimes those can be a little bit aggressive in their spice character, like a ton of cinnamon or the nutmeg is sort of overpowering or, it certainly wouldn't be similar to a pumpkin beer, especially the way many of them are now brewed with a lot of artificial flavors or anything like that. It really does stand alone. I would just encourage people to try it. That's oftentimes how we sell it in, is that if someone says they love all those fall beers, just say, oh, well, have you tried this? It's super different. It actually has the spice character coming from the hops, but still has a really nice malty backbone to back it up without being too bitter.
Perfect. It seems like it's kind of a great beer to draw in those amber brown ale fans and those IPA fans kind of.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Awesome. Very.
Yep.
Guys, what other questions do you have? I know I see Brandon's been answering some questions over here in the chat box. Thank you.
Yeah. So Brandon is our North Carolina market manager. So he is, you guys may see him out and about. He's the one down there managing all of our sales. So he and I are the dynamic duo between sales and marketing.
Awesome.
What?
What up, B?
What up?
So just so everybody can see if some of you have called in or they're not on your computer, somebody asked about the American Wheat Ale coming into our market, and that's going to be something that comes into the market in early 2018. Definitely an amazing beer. It'll be a fun beer for you guys to represent as well. Chad wanted to know if we would be getting any Abyss or any anniversary releases. Big fan, obviously. So
yeah, so
I can speak to that, Caroline.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, and I'd respond back with a Chad that asked that. Yeah, so actually, Butte Anniversary 29 will be landing in our wholesalers' warehouses this week. So it'll be hitting store shelves pretty about the same time as our core items that Caroline went over. And then Abyss comes towards the end of the year. So that'll be rolling out probably early to late December, just to keep an eye out for that. But yes, to answer your question in a short manner, we will have both coming to North Carolina this year.
Wonderful. Guys, who else has questions? We're going to give it about 2 more minutes before we round off. Speak now. Anybody? All right. One last question I had. I don't know if we, Caroline, I don't know if I missed this or not, but is Fresh Squeeze whole cone, or is that a combination?
Yes, it is whole cone.
That's what I had thought. Wonderful.
Yeah. So I mean, and there are, I believe, some pelletized hops that are utilized in it, but all of our beers are vast majority whole cone hops.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, guys, as always, please, again, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat function right now, or unmute yourself and ask them. If not, you're always welcome to email me, and I will reach out to Caroline and Brandon and get those questions asked and answered for you. You're welcome to reach out to them directly. This presentation will be uploaded to the Beer Explorer portal. This video will be uploaded to the Beer Explorer portal. Our Ohio team is also going to be sampling with Deschutes as well, so I'm sure we'll get some crossover questions on their end that we'll do just a brief FAQ for you guys and put that on the Beer Explorer portal. So there'll be tons of references for you all to come back and visit. We are launching next weekend, not this weekend. Thank you for that. So we will, be kicking off in the market then. So a lot of you guys, I think the coast starting first, and then we'll start moving inward throughout North Carolina. So this will be fast approaching, and we're really excited. Please, as you guys are out in the field and coming into questions that perhaps you don't have the answers to, please be reaching out. It's incredibly important. We will get the answers. So if you guys have questions about things, please make sure you reach out. Caroline, thank you so much. Brandon, thank you so much. We're super excited to work with y'all. This is going to be a wonderful rollout in North Carolina and very anticipated, I know.
Likewise, we're excited to be working on about beer.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thanks everybody for logging on tonight. Please email me if you have any questions. Like I said, Caroline and Brandon, I'm sure we'll be in touch soon. Everybody else, I will send an email recapping all of this, and it'll be on the Beer Explorer portal probably by Wednesday. Everybody have a good night. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
See you. Bye-bye.
Hey, Caroline, if you're still on, could you perhaps send me the slide deck from this presentation over email?